I'm with Leanne Ellison, who is a long-term colleague from my days with Ashbury ACT. And it's great to chat to you. So now you are a senior dietitian and exec officer with ACT Nutrition Support Service. So we were chatting off here a minute ago, and it's fantastic to reconnect. So can you tell me a bit about what you're doing in your job at the moment? Maybe to start us off, and then we'll get into some information that might help teachers that will listen to this.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for having me, John. And it's great to connect and talk to some of the folks at ACHBA, who I'm very fond of ACHBA as an organisation, because I think that our teachers and schools in general can have quite a positive impact on children's food choices and nutrition education as well. So what I'm doing at the moment, John, is I probably work more so in the canteen space, so supporting healthy school environments in particular, and focusing more so on canteens and helping canteens provide those healthier options in the school for the children to access. And if we have those healthier options in the canteens, then that can align with some of the nutrition, basic nutrition information that the children or students may be learning at school as well. So helping to support that overall healthy school environment. I've done some work in the past working with teachers and professional development for teachers around nutrition education as well. So, and also lots in the early childhood space too, in setting up those positive, healthy food experiences with children, because it does start from a very young age, that positive exposure to healthy foods.
So that sounds interesting, and I know you're going to be talking with Megan Sozia, who's also on the ASHBA Australia Health Promoting Schools Committee. So that's another kind of chat. But we spoke a few minutes ago about we're chatting about different things and what might be the best focus for this particular podcast. And we spoke about version 9 of the Australian Curriculum for Health and PE. And you had some really interesting information about that in terms of changes that you felt would be really useful to share with our listeners.
Yeah, and I think it's something that is much needed and has now been addressed quite appropriately in the Australian curriculum, and that is in relation to how teachers talk about food and diet, and ensuring that we don't increase any negativity or create any negativity around food, and increase the risk of poor food behaviours, such as, risk of eating disorders and so on. And so one of the main change that has occurred is that the removal of references to weight, body mass index, calories, and counting calories or kilojoules, and diets as well. So it's important that we, as teachers, that we try not to talk about those sorts of things, because it can be a very personal matter, and that can be quite confronting for some individuals, and can also be quite triggering for those young students who are living with some problems around food and are at risk of eating disorders as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's making me think about teenagers, without trying to say that's the only group of people that would refer to. But I'm thinking of my own kids, for example, and also their friends and so on, when you talk about that. And I think there's so much pressure now with media and social media as well about, like fast food, and there's such a massive pressure. I think health and PE teachers are often kind of left to that sort of thing to solve, but it's such a massive thing that we're not really in a position we can solve that, but we can certainly help with that discussion.
Yeah. And I think that you're just spot on there, John, because we are dealing with what we often refer to as an obesity epidemic. There is a large proportion of Australians and children who certainly are in a excessive weight range, but we have to be very careful how we tread around that, and I don't think it's a responsibility for the teachers to feel that that they have to be the solution in any way, or necessarily part of the solution. I mean, it's really important that children learn about food balance or nutrition balance. I think that is important, but to focus on weight, I think is really damaging. And so we've got to take weight out of the picture entirely, and focus on health. And, as a dietitian, I'm also a private practice dietitian. I often see people that come in to see me who are concerned about their weight. And the first thing I say is like, I don't really mind what your weight is. What I mind is how healthy you are. And so people can be healthy at whatever weight they happen to be. So weight shouldn't really be the determining factor when it comes to health. I think that's really important for teachers to recognise that. And so if we take weight entirely out of the discussion, we just focus on nutrition balance when it comes to food, I think that is what is most important. And also avoiding the discussion around counting calories or dietary protocols as well, because again, as you mentioned earlier, John, that there is a lot out in the media. There's a lot out on social media as well that touts all sorts of dietary protocols that are not healthy, and they may have impactful results for those particular individuals that are touting those things, but it's not an appropriate thing for young people to be exposed to, and we want to minimise their exposure to that sort of thing, particularly in the school environment as well, which needs to be supportive, and educating them on the appropriate things that they need to know, and that is essentially when it comes to food, that nutrition balance and understanding what that looks like as part of just healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, it's interesting, and what you're saying there as well makes me think about one of the key propositions, or the key ideas, the main propositions in the ACHP, in the Student Curriculum Health and Physical Education, and that's about health literacy and the idea that it's giving kids the tools in which to make a decision about things and making sure they get access to the right kind of information for them to make choices rather than the teacher telling them what to do, but directing towards appropriate information rather than the potentially harmful examples that you gave. And what you said there as well about the weight idea or focus within the curriculum in the past or within teaching in the past, it reminds me of being a former health and PE teacher myself, when we would get kids to write down their weight in terms of to do with some kind of maybe human movement science focus or whatever it was, but they would record weight. And it's like, as I say to my students at the moment as a HPE teacher educator, there's an awful lot of stuff we do in our subject area that other areas like mathematics, science, English, the kids in those classes aren't exposed to potential humiliation or embarrassment. But in our subject, especially in PE, we do it all the time, like whether it's a beep test or whether it's, dodgeball or different things where kids can be embarrassed, humiliated, even in the changing room as well. And if we're talking about health, there's an awful lot of things there in our subject that need to really kind of address. And we've been talking about it for a long time, but we need to make sure that we keep moving in that direction. So it's actually quite refreshing to hear what your thoughts are about BMI and weight and the fact that we've taken that out of the curriculum. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and I just think, and I understand where teachers are coming from, particularly health and PE teachers are coming from back in those days, taking the weights and so on, but for that education purpose, but not realising that it could actually be more damaging than anything else. And teenagers are particularly good at comparing themselves with each other and comparing themselves to others, other influences around them. And then they have so many influences now than we ever did when we were at school, John. And I think that, that whole feeling like they're somehow less less of a being, or somehow, that feeling of humiliation or anything like that can be extremely harmful, extremely triggering for certain individuals, and that can only cause more harm. And I think if we could just remove any reference, especially to things like weight and comparing in any way, is extremely important. And also, we all eat differently. I think we need to respect that there is no one diet for everybody. There is no one way of eating things. And I think what's important is just to understand that we all come from different backgrounds, different cultures, we all eat different ways, and respecting that, and also respecting that we all have different access to foods in different ways as well. So again, going down the path of exploring diets or promoting anything in particular can be quite harmful as well. And I think if we just rein it back and look at the big picture and focus on that balance. If I always talk about balance,
Yeah.
and things in moderation, and there's no good or bad. I think the discussion, also bringing up terminology around food and having that emotion that it can be associated with food can be quite harmful. So, when we might sometimes fall into that thing of saying, I don't eat that, it's a bad food, that's quite an emotive word, or that this is a good food. So there shouldn't be any good or bad. All food is great, and we have it in a healthy balance in our lifestyle. And I think that's where we've got to focus more on, is the way that we talk about food in an inclusive way that everyone feels comfortable about and doesn't put anyone on the spot feeling bad about how they might eat, or how they might weigh, or how they might look, or anything like that. And I think, there's some great things I think that are going to come from this, where we are going to be working in this space to come up with some suitable tools and guidelines to support teachers so that they are more equipped to address these kinds of issues in a sensitive way that isn't going to trigger some of the children and cause harm with regards to eating disorder risks.
So it's good to hear that. I think listening to what you're saying and putting my teacher hat on as well, I'm thinking a few things here. I think we are very guilty, certainly in the past, of judging whether it's about weight or how someone looks, or about their fitness, or what they should be doing and what they should be eating and so on. And of course there are cultural nuances in there as well. And I'm thinking like people eat rice for a cultural reason, and that can maybe be frowned upon as being not healthy. And that idea of not being, not having a value judgment, I think the other side of that is the fact that people are probably thinking, well, we do have an obesity problem in our society, so therefore, where's the balance? Where do we intervene, and what can we say and what we can't? So it's encouraging for you to say there that the idea is to look at resources so that teachers know what they can say and what they can do, because I think that's a problem. There's one thing to say, don't do something, don't use it as language, but what can they do instead, and what can they feel empowered about, and what they can actually do and have an effect.
Yeah, and I think always, right now, I think what teachers can probably get out of this podcast is try to always put a positive slant, bring food in a positive light, no matter what food which might be talking about. It's really important that everyone has that positive relationship with food, and that there isn't that negative association between with any food in particular. And I think, what a lot of the work that I do at the moment, John, is very much in the early years space these days, where it's about giving children positive experiences around healthy food. And by having those positive experiences, then they see that, they're more likely to want to eat those healthy foods. We don't even talk about, the less healthy foods. They're always going to be there, and we're always going to enjoy them, let's face it. And they can be part and embraced as part of a healthy diet. But if the more we can focus on that obviously that healthy balance, and putting that in that positive perspective, I think is really, really crucial. And just trying to catch yourself up when talking about diet, or going on a diet, or losing weight, or weight in general. We do have to try and just catch ourselves before we start to go down that wormhole of discussion, because that's when it can start to become quite destructive to a young person's mental health and their well-being as well.
And especially if they're looking at their teachers potentially as role models and so on. And I think that's we're in a particular space as health and PE teachers where we can influence kids a lot more than other teachers do, especially in this area, and given the fact that it's within our key learning area as well. Listen, Leanne, thank you so much. It's been great to have the chat, and I look forward to hearing the talk you have with Megan as well, which is a bit different, and it's great to reconnect.
You're very welcome, John. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.